for mezzanine level. And excuse me, we're just having some, there we go. And improving public facilities with a focus on inclusion, safety, accessibility, and redesigning the plaza on Germain Street. There we go. Okay. So some other enhancements include fostering arts and culture, introducing elements and artifacts that truly tell the St. John story, constructing a professional commercial incubator kitchen for emerging businesses, leveraging renewable energy sources, and reimagining some more unconventional spaces such as our rooftop, and responding to the federal ban on single-use plastics by 2030. Our goal is to truly accelerate some of these key components of the strategic plan within the first 3 years, which will not only serve as a foundation for other initiatives to come, but it will also be the most indicative of forward movement and forward momentum. To expedite these outcomes, staff are requesting the support of a temporary position for a term of 3 years. This position will maintain a strict focus on, again, initiating some of those structural and operational improvements as identified. Once projects have been initiated, they will then be transitioned over to permanent staff to manage the ongoing implementation of those items. So again, it's really just to accelerate, launch, initiate. Those are some of the buzzwords that I'd like to focus on today. Adding an additional resource will not only propel some of these initiatives forward, but will also enable management to refocus on some of those more functional objectives, such as updating our leasing procedures, addressing vacancies, the implementation of core hours, and reviewing the current governance model, again, to make sure that it's sustainable and that we can achieve long-term success. This position will also be tasked with unlocking additional funding, coinciding primarily with the celebration of the market's 150th anniversary in 2026, which is quite exciting. This plan presents an opportunity to reimagine the city market in new ways and to restore its title of this community. These images here on the screen, although conceptual, demonstrate possibility and potential, while ensuring that we actively and thoughtfully preserve this. So the recommendation today, staff would like to request that the Growth Committee recommend Common Council approve up to $200,000 from the Growth Reserve for resourcing to support and expedite the implementation of the 10-year City Market Strategic Plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I like the, expedite part.
Me too.
We've got this beautiful plan in place and now we've got to execute. So, is there any? Okay, second?
Second question too.
Okay, go ahead.
Thanks for the presentation.
Do you want to turn your mic on?
Yeah, sorry, was on. Light coming on. Button is turning on. Oh, there we go. Hey, thank you. Yeah. So I thank you for the presentation. I guess I wonder the $200,000 from the reserve. I think about the capacity problems we're having to try to achieve for housing creation. And I look at this as an expenditure that's going to improve quality of life for people who live around it. And we know there's hundreds of people who are going to be in the next few years as units get developed at Fundy Key and other places added to the mix. Is this enough money out of the gate? I guess why $200,000? I need to understand a little bit more about that, the pace of change that tells us is going to happen, and if we should go further, I guess. Yeah, just because I guess I don't also understand what is the overall cost that we kind of foresee of the plan. We may not have all those numbers, but yeah, I know we have a 10-year strategic plan. And I see what you're talking about out of the gate. So I'm just trying to understand where that number comes from and if it's enough to achieve that.
Through the deputy to Councillor Harris, great question, and thank you for posing it. So the $200,000, the way that it's been devised is that 175,000 of that will be for that specific position. So again, a focused, targeted position that's really looking at initiating some of these, what we would consider catalytic products for the city market. We also had an additional 25,000 to help support some of those early on initiatives as well. I will mention that we've earmarked $500,000 in the capital reserve to support implementation as well. Now, unfortunately, that reserve cannot be used for staffing, and therefore we're coming to the growth reserve for that request. In terms of the overall cost and whether this is enough out of the gate, this will give us 2 years. This will give us 2 years of a temporary FTE that will be added to the city market team. And then that will give staff enough time to account for the last and the final year, the third year of the term within the operating budget. So that's why the number may seem a slightly lower. And then I'll also mention that the per annum salary of this position will be quite competitive. So we're really looking to bring in someone that is, has ample experience and expertise. And this is, for us, this is the right number for that.
Okay. Can I ask a follow-up question real quick on that?
Sure.
Who's the ideal person for this? Like, what type of expertise are we really looking to drive into this team? Because I know they would be working directly with yourself, wouldn't they, Andrew? Like under you, I would assume they would be, or adjacent? Adjacent. Okay. So who's our kind of ideal candidate here for this?
So through the deputy. So the work will really include sourcing conceptual and detailed designs, looking at procuring estimates for the enhancements, again, securing capital funding for the market's 150th anniversary, working closely with relevant departments, so asset management, utilities and infrastructure, potentially revitalizing the tea infusion space as it's going to be a larger ticket item. So for this position, I mean, project management is going to be key, but they also need to speak the language. So they need to understand, what it takes to work through that process of creating something that is so conceptual in nature and really bringing it to fruition. So currently, that expertise and myself included is not strong within the team, and the staffing structure as it is, it just doesn't have the capacity to have it on someone else, the side of someone's desk, nor should it be. So, to your question, project management would be key. Years of experience, but as we work through the staffing action, then we'll have a better idea on what exactly we're going to be asking this position to do.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. You have a question?
I guess we can always revisit the
I do.
asking.
The light's been on now for long before.
I thought it was on since the beginning of the meeting. I'm sorry.
To put your
Go ahead.
light on to ask a question, or did you
Okay.
just ask a question?
I'm sorry, Councilor. I thought it was on from the beginning. Go
No,
ahead.
let's ask a
Go ahead.
question.
You asked a question. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So is this 5 people now in charge of the market? We had 4 going into this. We hire another person for $200,000. So does that give us 5 people that pertain to the market work, or does somebody get eliminated?
Through the deputy, no position will be eliminated. So I oversee the city market as part of my portfolio. So I provide some more strategic support in that sense. We also have Andrew McDonald, who is our city market manager, more in general operations and the day-to-day functions. He has a team of 5 that report directly to him. So again, they're kind of on the floor, making sure that everything is moving smoothly. So with Andrew and the staff that fall under him, I would say that's a lot more of the, again, functional, operational, day-to-day. Whereas we don't, outside of myself, have anyone focus on that strategic approach. So this would be in addition to what we already have in place and something that's currently lacking.
No, what I was meaning, going into this, there was yes, 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 and it was Jacqueline Hamilton before, who's now to Halifax, so that's 4.
Mm.
Now we add another one, we have 5. So is anybody being eliminated among 1, 2, 3, 4? And the new person, 5.
Through the deputy, not that I'm aware of, there's no plans, but I may lean on Commissioner Poffenrother and
Yeah.
Mr. McGovern as well.
Just,
Well, before I vote to add another $200 to something that we pick up the deficit, and the way the market's been handled for the last 2 or 3 years, I would like that answered.
If I may just, I would also add that this year, we're focused on doing a full review of the current governance model. So again, that's looking at what the best approach is, in terms of how the city market is run, how the city market is staffed. And then most certainly by the end of the year, early into next year, we should be prepared to present, an appropriate resourcing request that is in alignment with that more robust, detailed, deep dive, if you will, into governance.
Can I say something else, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
It's all pertaining to the market. From a business point of view, we spend hundreds of dollars to do places over. And then when I look at the rent, it takes anywhere from, I'll exaggerate, 15 to 20 years to ever get our money back. Like, to me, that's a very poor business venture. And prime example would be the restaurant where we get our sandwiches from, Jeremiah's. We get 130 or 40,000 in the bakery already. And now I was there yesterday, we're working again. Then on the other side, we have a big blue tarp over another place. It costs money to buy stuff, and our people from the carpenter shop working at it. And to me, when I look at the figures, it takes anywhere from 10 to 15 years to even get our money back for the improvements that we're doing. Like, to me, that's a real poor business concept.
Okay, I'm gonna let the commissioner answer your question. We can move on.
Thank you. Just to add a little bit of context there. I mean, what we want to achieve at the city market is transformative to execute the city market strategic plan. For us to be able to do that in such a way that enhances the customer experience and supports the tenants in the way they need to be supported, we need additional help to do that. So the project manager that we're talking about is really to execute on the strategic plan while our other team members have a lot of other things to do. And there's a lot of work to be done at the city market, and it's not where we want it to be. For us to be able to take it where it needs to go, we need to have the right people in place to do the work. And these are all issues that we're working through. I know there's concerns around vacancies and the plan and how we're headed forward, but we need the right team in place to do that work. And that's what this initiative helps us with.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor then. I'll call the question. Oh, I'm sorry, Dawn, I'm sorry.
all I was going to say was that my question is the same as Brent's, but I would assume that we can always come back at a later date and access more cash if that's required, because you do have the 150th anniversary, et cetera. So, and $500,000 goes basically nowhere today. So, okay, I'm good with that.
Okay, so on
Call
the
the
question,
question.
all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any, motion's carried. Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe just to clarify as well, in terms of, one of the roles of this position is also to identify and develop the costing associated with, the projects to be implemented, because we don't have that broken down now. So in order to be able to get to the stage of recommending it to a capital program and additional monies coming forward for recommendation to council, we really need to understand what the scope of that work is and the cost associated with it and have a good handle on the numbers. And so that will also be part of this.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, let's move on then to the next item, the North End Neighborhood Plan. Over to you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair. So staff has begun the process of creating a new North End neighborhood plan. The first stage is to create a boundary map that determines which areas will be included in the plan And then we'll return to Growth Committee in May with a formal recommendation. Staff has also prepared the terms of reference for the proposed North End Plan Advisory Committee, which will be a critical component in the development of the plan. And with that, I will hand it over to Jennifer Kushner, the Community Planning Manager, who will be presenting the item.
Thank you, Commissioner, Deputy Mayor, Your Worship, members of Growth Committee. I'm really pleased to be here today to go over the next steps with the North End Plan. I know members of council and staff have been really excited about getting this going, and it has been a long time coming. It was on the books when I first started. So we are moving forward with the next steps to get us set up to really get into the ground and really start work on the project. So we have 2 items before you today for consideration. Thank you, Andrew. The first is the project boundary. So we do have an example up here with the Central Peninsula Plan. So the goal with the boundary is to establish something that isn't too big and isn't too small. So like, baby bear's porridge, mix with Papa Bear's porridge, find Mama Bear's porridge. So Central Peninsula, when we did it, pretty easy geographical area to look at. A peninsula in and of itself creates some defined boundaries. And then, of course, the challenges of determining where those boundaries would end at the north end. So with the Central Peninsula, we had Uptown, South End, Waterloo Village, and then different primary corridors or connector corridors that you can see essentially tentacling out from the main plan area. Just let Andrew do that for me so I don't make noises. Staff have been working hard on trying to determine the correct boundary for the North End neighborhood plan. So we took a look at the area. There were several things we looked at. One was where the Central Peninsula Plan ended and where we could move north from it. So that would be kind of the southeast boundary. We looked at Douglas Avenue. So one of the other things with plan areas is you want to make sure that you're not essentially orphaning a part of your city. It fits in quite well with this area, but for instance, may not be the best fit in the future if we do a west side plan. So we have the North Douglas Avenue, Main Street area there. And then we looked at some of the neighborhoods that we know exist. So of course, the Old North End, we have the Lansdowne commercial area, Crescent Valley, Mount Pleasant, and Somerset Millage Avenue further north. So within this plan boundary, we're very distinctly not moving further into the Milledgeville area. We determined that would incorporate a fairly large area to be added in. And with this plan, we want the plan to be big enough, but small enough that we can really give focus to each neighborhood and give it really the effort and the attention to detail it requires so that all neighborhoods can be really successful within the plan. Within this boundary, we have a lot of developed areas, some very historic neighborhoods that have been the backbone of this community. And we also have areas that are ripe for greenfield development. So they either haven't historically been developed or the use has long since ceased and have great potential for larger scale projects to occur. We also have some exciting new sites that would be located that help anchor the plan. So the new North End School, that site would be included and will be a really great public investment into the community. The site of the proposed New Brunswick Museum expansion would also be located in the plan area. And as well, some really passionate neighborhoods that do have really active community centers, community groups, volunteers, and people who are very passionate, which will help drive this area. With this boundary that we're proposing, we did talk to One Change and Crescent Valley Community Center to get their feedback about this, whether they think this could work. They are supportive of the plan with the acknowledgement that this is the first step. This would be the overall boundary, But as we get going, we'll be defining the sub-neighborhoods based on feedback from the community, where they feel each of these neighborhoods sort of start and stop, where they transition and how they interact with each other. So this is a fairly large area. We are looking at, around 10,000 residents who live there, 7.57 square kilometers, and about 5,500 dwellings. So big area, diverse area, but I think an area that we're all really excited to see what it can become. What we are proposing, thank you, if we have the general support of growth, we'd like to open this up for community feedback. So my colleague, Eva, has been working very hard on getting our Shape the City page ready to be launched. We're aiming to launch it tomorrow. This would provide some general information about the plan, will serve as the landing page for this plan as we move forward in the coming year. And as well will provide approximately 2 weeks for people to provide some feedback of whether they think this area looks good. No, we think it's too big. Oh, and about this site, you're forgetting it. And then the goal would be for us to take that information, gather it, determine if we think any changes might be needed, and then come back to growth at the meeting in May to get confirmation and then hopefully endorsement from the committee about the proposed boundary. And at that point, we'd be able to get hopefully Common Council's endorsement. So that's item 1 of the 2 included in the plan. The second is the terms of reference. So in addition to getting a boundary sorted, we also want to prepare for establishing an advisory committee. We did have something quite similar with the Central Peninsula, so a committee that had,
Go ahead, finish.
Okay.
Before we get into that stage, to achieve that boundary, the area of Wright Street and Rockford Forge, they don't see themselves as part of anything. I've had people say to me, well,
Barry, let's bring your line up.
the area of Wright Street, Rockford Forge, Paradise Row, they don't see themselves as part of anything. Like, there's not even a full-size playground down there. I've been just told that, well, they can walk over to the Boys and Girls Club, or they can walk to the North End playground. I met a mother one day with 5 kids, and she said, they expect me to go, because I'm trying to get some more equipment, down on Rockford Court, and she said, I can't even get up the hill. And when I called the city, they said, well, walk over there or walk over there. Like, we live in a walking city, right? And we want to be in a walking city, but they do feel isolated. Like, the South End has sort of 2 places, Boys and Girls Club and Community Center, and the North End has a community center. The West Side does, but there is nothing in that area from Paradise Row up to Wright Street down to Rockford Court.
What's Stanley Street playground is there?
Celebration. Yeah, it's only 2 pieces of equipment. And,
So I guess the question is this area is included in this plan, correct? Okay, so
no, I
they are
didn't see it
included.
there.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, they're included.
Is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Because it's,
Down at baseball.
because Rockford Court was, I mean, I lived there as a kid, and it was once a community.
Mhm.
And now, because of the thruway and everything, it's the people down there feel excluded. And they're hemmed in by this highway. So there is a feeling down there. I don't know how you rectify it. You can't build a community center,
Yeah.
but I don't know how you rectify it.
Is that all part of the plan?
Yeah, so part of the plan will be identifying these neighborhoods and importantly, identifying sections of the plan area where they don't really feel like they fit. And then working with those residents to decide whether they want to be included in one of these bigger neighborhoods or whether there's a need to have a really small sub-neighborhood within the plan area
Yeah.
because it doesn't quite fit.
Yeah, that's what I hear all the time.
Yeah, so that will definitely be something we'll look at, and we'll really hope that members of council will encourage those individuals to participate through this process. We will be calling, my next part of my presentation will talk about members of the community getting involved in the advisory committee, but there will also be robust public engagement where we're hoping individuals like the person you mentioned will come forward and provide feedback or ideas on how they feel like their small little community that maybe isn't quite a community can be, created into something a bit more wholesome and collected as an entity, give them a bit of a identity to the place they live.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Kenna,
So the second part of this is in fact terms of reference. Staff did take a look at what was undertaken previously through the Central Peninsula Plan, and as well we did take some influence from the creation of the City Market Strategic Plan as well, given that that was one of the more recent kind of community advisory groups that were created. So attached to your report is a fairly robust proposed terms of reference. What is being proposed is an 11-person advisory committee. We would be looking for members of Common Council to be appointed, as well as diverse residents, people who volunteer or work in the plan area. The more diverse, the better with this. We are hoping to get people who maybe are owner occupied within the neighborhood, who are renters, people who run businesses, people who are looking to develop, people with lived experience, and essentially people who also volunteer or have some sort of invested interest in seeing the North End grow and thrive. What we're proposing is this committee would, with the endorsement of Growth Committee and the subsequent endorsement of Common Council, will be something we can launch and start soliciting people to apply, to identify how they think they'd be beneficial, how they fit in some of these sets of criteria that we think would be beneficial, and how we can then move forward with getting this committee up and going, so that by the time we have a consultant selected and the boundary 100% firmed up, that we'll be able to get them going on some of the initial discussions around this plan. So really framing it out, working with them on things like public engagement, and going through this process to ensure that we have engagement from a variety of people who truly are passionate about the North End. It's a very detailed document, so I hope everyone had a few minutes to read it over. And we are more than willing to hear any feedback that might exist, if there's anything major you would like to see changed before we take this to council. Our goal is, assuming we get some sort of endorsement today, we'd be moving it forward to Common Council. Depending on the scale of feedback, this could happen as early as next week, or it would be at their first meeting in May. And upon that, we would be launching the search for committee members, and would go through the nominating committee with support from staff to make sure we're really right-sizing this group. The more diverse and the stronger the membership, the easier it's going to be to really build a plan that the community buys into and feels some level of ownership and support for.
okay, Sarah Reardon?
I'm going to move the recommendation.
Okay.
And I do have a question. When you referenced the South End plan, was it 11 people as well? It seemed like a bigger group. I mean, that's a while ago. I just think like, 2 counselors, whatever number for staff, like, will you get the diversity that you say you're looking for with 11, but is more than 11 unruly? I don't know.
Yeah, through the deputy, it is a challenge. I believe Yeva, was it 9?
Okay.
But I feel like there were a lot of extra people, given the thank you page in the Central Peninsula Plan did have a lot of people referenced. So there may have been people who were initially part of the group who left and then were subsequently replaced. Our hope here is that we would have people committed for the duration of the plan, that we'd have limited turnover, and through having that number, we believe we should get a good range of representatives from the area.
I'm sure you will. We had 75 applicants for that.
Okay, So we have a mover. Can I get a seconder?
I'll second, and I have a question, or I have a comment.
Do you have a comment?
And-
Go ahead.
Out of the gate, it looks really good. This was this is one of the first things that I was asking former Commissioner Jacqueline Hamilton about when we were doing our orientation as a new council. Main Street, that Main Street corridor is going to be so crucial to unlocking the potential. And I did some rough numbering with Ian Fogan and our GIS services like 2 years ago, just to put a price tag of the opportunity on here. If we bring up the average assessment of this area, this geographic boundary, which is very similar to the one we looked at, to the average of the rest of the city, it's $135 million of tax base and hundreds of vacant land spots. It is like probably the main growth opportunity for the city and development opportunity. And so I'm really happy that we're here. Definitely want to consider the Stanley Village as its own little piece. Since I live on Wright Street now, I've already met a few neighbors, and it is a very vibrant little community down there that is a bit chopped up funny now that we've had urban renewal. But I don't think we'll have any problem getting buy-in from folks for this. And I guess my question is, why do we need... The last timeline overall for this was proposed was 2 years. And I know that is what it took the Central Peninsula plan, or 3 years, I guess. It was like between 2 and 3 years. I guess I struggle with the idea that it needs to take that long, and I'm worried about taking that long because of how much energy there already is for development in this city and missed opportunities that we may miss along the way. So I'm looking at that requirement for an outside consultant and wondering, do we really need to go outside our own public service here to do that? And do we envision a way that this can be expedited? I know good public consultation does take time, but yeah, I guess I would lean into that. Is there a way that we can move through those required pieces faster? Because I do see there being a opportunity cost to not having this plan in place. But it's just for consideration. Yeah.
Through the deputy. We would love to do this completely in-house. The reality is we do have very high volumes of active development files that staff are working on, as well as the zoning bylaw amendments that are also a part of the Housing Accelerator Fund. So there are limited staff hours for the amount and volume of work that we are needing to undertake on a daily basis, plus these extra initiatives. Staff will be having an additional individual who will be joining our team, who will be dedicating the majority of their time, at least initially, to getting this plan going. And in regards to length of time, one of the key things is background information. During this process, there will be infrastructure studies that are undertaken to determine capacity challenges. We will also be continuing to work with developers who may want to move forward with development now. We will be encouraging that to continue to occur even throughout plan development. And we have other developers who may be just waiting. They want to see what the broader plan is. Sometimes it's the first person needs to get their foot in the door. There needs to be a vision established before they're really ready to get going. I don't know if the commissioner or a director would like to add anything else.
Through the deputy to Councillor Harris, I think the value that consulting teams can bring, one is added capacity, but also knowledge of what new typologies are being developed across the country so that we can try and bring and replicate some of those patterns as part of the neighborhood pattern. So the other advantage is they can bring options. Once we hear public feedback, they can say, well, what have we done somewhere else, and quickly try and replicate that. So it's a question of are we in the habit of doing that neighborhood planning, and how much time does that take in terms of learning curve to develop that skill set versus going and getting that information in. I think dealing with consultants will also give us a clear line of sight on what technical studies we need to prepared to kind of bring that plan into a stage where we can implement fairly quickly. So I think it's a question of going to consultants who are in the habit of doing neighborhood planning more often, and that just brings the most contemporary knowledge on housing types, because that ties into the app and the other conversation about new prototypes of buildings that we need to bring in. So it's really that advantage.
Yeah, I guess I'll just add, I think that makes sense when you say it like that. And I mean, if we had like a group like Strong Towns, I know there's a local chapter, but even the overall Strong Towns group and the Tottering Institute and those ones, if we can get that synergized with some of the other stuff around our Housing Accelerator Fund, because they would be capable, I guess I see what you're saying, like they'd be capable consultants to weigh in on more than one issue. So, yeah, I guess if we can look at it that way, that's fine, yeah.
Thank you. So on the question then, all in favor? Opposed, if any, motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item, growth at a glance, Commissioner Pottenrod.
Thank you, Deputy. I'm very pleased to present the first quarter development activity numbers, and so the growth at a glance graphic is in the kit for the public to view, and I'm really excited about the results so far in the first quarter. And it's been a very busy first quarter, and we're seeing application numbers right now that we wouldn't typically see until starting April, May, and June, which is typically our very busy time of year for permit applications. But this year we are seeing that type of busy activity early in the year, which we're extremely pleased to see. With respect to building permit numbers, in the graphic that you have, it shows 134 building permits received, 134 where our 5-year average is 105. And things are changing. It is April 16th. Since we prepared the report, there's another 33 building permit applications in the door with a value of $9.2 million. So when you look at the construction value figure of $45.9 million, which is $20 million more than our 5-year average, you can also add another almost $10 million of construction value that has come in the door in just the last 2 weeks. So it's really quite phenomenal what we're seeing, and of course, extremely pleased. And we're seeing the trend definitely is around residential units. So in the graphic, you'll see units created. So those are permitted units that can move on to construction phase is 105. But again, in the last 2 weeks, we've had a number of permit applications that were up to 167 units. So again, like it's changing every couple of weeks. The numbers are increasing, which is really great news. So with the unit count right now, new units created over 160. We're at about 14% of our Housing Accelerator requirement. So our Housing Accelerator target is a 1124, and we're over 160 now. Of course, we would like to see more than 1124, but that's our target under the Housing Accelerator program. So units is well over 100. Our 5-year average at this point of the year is 47. And construction values, as I mentioned, definitely higher than we've seen in the last 12 years for this point in the year. So very good news there. Some specifics that I can share since the last update in January, 14 projects have now been permitted. So we have 14 new projects now under construction or ready to start to the construction phase. And of all of our major projects that we have underway right now, either under construction or about to get started with construction, so permits issued, building permits issued, we have about just over 525 units being created right now under construction or permitted to be beginning construction. We've had also a very busy first quarter with respect to permit We continue to be busy with permit applications under review, obviously, and we have about 170 units currently under review for permit applications. So those are permit applications that we're actively reviewing and should be issued very soon. The other thing I wanted to share is since the update in January, 3 projects have received planning approvals, residential projects. And so we're awaiting the building permit applications to come in for those projects. And that reflects 281 units that have received planning approvals, and we await the building permits. And in addition, we've been very busy with pre-application meetings. So those are meetings that we have with developers and builders and property owners who are looking for more information from us to prepare them for permit applications or planning approval applications. We've had 15 pre-application meetings since the last update, and of those 15, all but 2 of them are around residential projects. So great news. We continue on a positive trend, very good first quarter, and we look forward to seeing more.
That's awesome news. That's very good news. I got a quick question for you though.
Yes.
Do you see any increased activity since we've done that symposium over a month ago? The developer symposium? Like, I mean, it seems to me like you said a couple of weeks, the last 2 or 3 weeks, it's been picking up. I'm wondering if there's
It's a great question. I mean, certainly in the last 2 weeks, we've seen some really busy activity. Is it a result of the symposium? I'm not sure. We had that about 3 weeks ago, but certainly we were hearing positive information from the developers that they're interested in getting started. Perhaps some of those are from that. It's hard to say for sure, but definitely the last 2 or 3 weeks has been extremely busy, in addition to overall a busy first quarter.
excellent. Good.
I just want to know, why is the print so small in the differential? Because I like that bigger, especially when it's good news.
Absolutely.
Good point. We can tweak it.
One quick question, two quick questions. First one, do we have any more substantial builders that are new to us that are here doing work on this residential file that you're aware of?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think Eric DeJong, who we've seen,
Investments?
is like, he has a couple of projects in that are quite substantial in size for here. So, I mean, he's the first name that I can think of right off the top of my head. Yeah.
Yeah, he did a fantastic presentation at PAC or at council for his application. And do we is there anybody, is it federal? I don't know if this would be federal or if this would be provincial. Does anybody track residential vacancy by quarter, or is that a census thing that's done every year, or Stats Can?
Oh, that is a good question.
And we don't have to have the answer. I'd be curious to find out if we could get that. I think it would be helpful information on our
The dashboard.
development at a glance.
And we can take that away.
Yeah, take it away.
Yeah.
And the reason I think about that is because, you know, we're talking about what we're going to focus in on. And it occurs to me, like, there's all kinds of projects that we have in mind for improvement of quality of life in the city, but most important piece is creating the availability of units for people. So could we be looking at the vacancy rate of, say, you know, achieving sort of a stable vacancy rate of a recommended, whatever it is, 2.5%, as some sort of like marker for how well we're doing before we move on to some of those other things? It would be helpful to me, I guess, to kind of mark ourselves. Because as we create some vacancy opportunity, then we stabilize those rents, I hope. So anyway, just for a takeaway. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, can I get a motion to receive and file? Seconded by Councilor Ogden on the question. All in favor? Okay, and I guess we're ready to adjourn. All in favor? Okay, thanks, everybody.